Thank you very much for this welcoming introduction. Yes, it's 12:30 and I will need my full time, so this is just the first announcement. It's very hard to talk about something in a precise way because, as it was said before, we as artists often do not have just an idea. It does not come, we say we do this or that. So what I would try to do in this presentation is to show you my work, but to tell you as well how it came. I started to do this and why I do it and what is related to it. I see myself as an artist who does many different things. I like very much physical work, to work with cables, to work with my hands. I like very much to do big installations, even if sometimes it's a risk. I like to do technical things, like connecting speakers and so on. And of course, I like, since many, many years now, to find electromagnetic sounds, electromagnetic waves, and make them audible. I'm as well a field recordist since the 70s. I've concentrated a lot on underwater recordings, and I will show a project later on about this. I started with composition, and now I'm requested again. I talked about it yesterday with Jennifer Walsh. The musicians want us back. And this is a special challenge. So this is a picture from a string quartet and electromagnetic sounds, which was presented here in the Music Abou in Amsterdam last year. So I can't say what I am really. I'm an artist, and I'm a performer. Okay, now, how did it start? It started that I studied music, and it was not easy at the end of the 60s, beginning of the 70s to do that, because there was two roles. Or you were a performer, or you became a teacher. It was not foreseen that women were composing, and I was quite frustrated by all this. So I started a series of performances where I questioned my instrument, the flute. I played it with metal cymbals, boxing gloves. I was wrapped up completely until I couldn't play anymore, a very difficult Mozart piece. And here is a sound. It's a piece called Weekend, because already at that time I was very much interested in the world around myself. It's breathing through flute, and there's 3 short parts out of a long performance you will hear. Okay, I survived this. And the original performance is, of course, much, much longer. I just did it as long as I could. I tried as well to compose, and it was not much recognized at that time. One of my first pieces was a piece for five piano players. It was very difficult to play, and they all had headphones. I was not aware later on the headphone would become an important part of my work. And they all played in different rhythms, so it was like a big machine, and I had to rehearse and to follow these rhythms, which were played by cassette recorders. Okay, then video work, and here what is still my theme was quite obvious. I think we have always, can I get a little bit of less of light? I really feel disturbed. Thank you very much. I think we always have several realities around us, and what we see is not really what might be there, and what we hear is not what is around us. And in these video performances, which I did with the video artist Fabrizio Plessi for several years, there is a live transmission from video of what we are doing. We are playing instruments or objects, and so the images of the details of what we're doing have a different impact than looking at us completely. It was the same with the sound. You could hear us playing, but it was amplified. So if you were nearer to the speakers, you heard something different than being around us. And people mostly could move around and follow these two kinds of real action and amplified or changed action. I call this double reality, and we did many performances like that. Okay, now something which was very important for me, because I was quite desperate in the 70s, because I didn't know what I was doing, and you know, it was not like today. You had all these nice networking and computers, and you could exchange idea in a minute. We had to meet, we had to talk, we could listen to records. We had books, but the networking was much more difficult than today. Maybe it was more intense, I don't know. So one person which really helped me a lot was John Cage. I met him in Bremen during a festival, and he invited me spontaneously to New York, and then I was there several times, and he didn't talk about art, about music. We just talked, and we went for mushrooms, and this was so helpful for me. I mean, just to see that everyday things can be art, and it does not have to be studying the flute 8 hours a day to play a piece of 5 minutes. Yeah, and this was really, I was very grateful to, and I'm still very grateful to this person. So now it comes to the electromagnetic things. After this meetings, I decided not to be anymore on stage. For me, it's a torture to be on stage. I suffer to be here, and you look at me, and I don't like it at all. But I have to do the presentation. But my idea was that for the public, they should have freedom. They should not sit, they should go around, they should listen in different ways. And while I was studying electronics at the end, in Milano, I found out about the system of electromagnetic induction. I had a little telephone cube. I bought often things and I tried to modify them. And this telephone cube was, I don't know if they use it still. I mean, it was put next to a normal telephone, and the voice came out amplified. And this little telephone cube had coils inside. And when I was at my course, electronic course, suddenly there was a noise coming out of this little box, and because I forgot to put it out. And I said, what is it? And they said, yeah, well, the system of electromagnetic induction. There's a cord, and it picks up the electromagnetic fields in the workshop. And this was like, oh my God, this is so interesting. So I was going on to explore this, and I had cubes made, produced, and this was the first installation. This is a reinstallation, but you can see the people with these little cubes, and there is sound circulating in the cables. The cable is a loop, and when you come near with this little cube, you hear the sound which is circulating in the cable. You can put the cube to your ear, you can have it in your hand, whatever. And in this first installation, it was like the sound of breathing and the sound of the seaside. So you could walk between these two things. And I went on to do many installations. The electrical cable became my tool. And after a while, I found out that it was quite boring or it was tiring for the people to walk all the time like this, you know. And I thought, why don't I build headphones? And here's the scheme of the headphone. It's the same like two cubes together. They're completely independent. They have coils, an amplifier, and some little secrets in them. And this became a big step in this induction work, because then suddenly people could walk around, they could move, they could mix sounds, and yeah, I did many installations of this kind in the early 80s. I think around 85, some museums started to ask me, could you do something in our places? So one installation I still do is the bird tree, and it's a tree made of cables. It's 12 or 14 channels, and in every cable is a different bird singing. So to see the size, it's a very meditative work. You have to glue all the cables. You make a drawing, then glue. And this is in Taipei, I think. You can see the Asian people first tend to see an installation making a row, and they pass very slowly one by one. And I tell them, no, come along, go wherever you want. This is the idea. And here is now another picture where they understood and the sound. This is like different sounds they could hear and walk around. So this is like, you come to the next one, you mix the sounds, and in this short presentation, they're one by one. But the interesting thing is that people said, is this electronics or is it real? Because they couldn't remember these sounds or identify them. And so what was triggered in their mind was a question, did I ever hear this? Is it real? Okay, so this was the bird tree. And another just short picture I want to show you is about an installation underground garage in Berlin, where there was a lot of water and they had to get out the water. And I worked there 2 weeks with many people, and what came out was this. It was fluorescent cable put around 40 columns, and in every column there was a different water sound. Some I had recorded in space, some elsewhere. And the people walked around within this kind of labyrinth, and you see all the cables are not straight, they have different angles. So it seemed like it was shaky. It was a shaky underground. And the day of the opening, you can see it in the middle, there's water coming out of the floor. And they still have these problems. Just some other images of installations. You see, the cable for me was like a visual material. This was one in the water. The people could get out the cables out of the water. They had rubber boots, and it was all disasters. Ships going down, sirens singing, war things. Well, it was really like 12 water disasters. And then at the end, there was a kind of harp, and you could hear all the stories together. It was really fun. I did other things besides that, and I got, by the time, a little bit disturbed because I got more and more strange signals in these cables, which were not the sounds I had put in. And so I became looser, and sometimes I just put the cables and people could put them together, and the installation in the end was completely different from the beginning. But I decided then for a while not to do any more these cable installations, because I could not filter these other sounds out, and as well I was interested in works with solar energy. I don't show this cycle of work now, it would be too much. But I want to show you some pictures of something which is related, which is not the inaudible but the invisible. And this is light, work with light, with a special pigment, which here in this case is put on the surface of speakers, which form a field. The sounds are tuning forks, very subtle sounds floating. And there's a black light above, and the only light is coming from the white pigment, a very special pigment, which enlightens the room. I use this pigment for quite a lot. It's very special, it's very expensive, like a kilo costs more than 1,000 euros, so I had to be very careful with that stuff. And here you can see that the UV light shows you as well hidden things in the walls, because there's many traces like mud, like I imagine this shipyard when you have a UV light and you go along, you will see a lot of things you won't see with your normal eyes. And I was very, very interested in these things. And talking about industries, this is a Gaza Meter. A Gaza Meter is a place which is filled with gas. And it's in Oberhausen, in the industrial Ruhr area in Germany. It's thin, it's just a metal wall. It's surrounded by streets, by cars, by trains, by the water. And when they asked me to do something inside, they had saved it from being torn down, and they used it as an exhibition space, but they wanted something permanent which they could put on besides the exhibitions. And it was dark, it was very cold, and you heard all these sounds from outside, and I questioned myself, what can I do? And I refused first, and then this image came to my mind. It's the Zauberflöte from Schinkel. It's a theater play, maybe you have seen it. It's a very famous theater scenery. And I thought about these lights and the lights coming up. So I decided to make a light installation following these little signs. We could not touch the walls, they were under protection, so we had to put certain magnetic things to put the lights on. The score is mostly about instruments or sounds which resonate, and I play you a short moment of this 14-channel installation, which was you could hear it all over in this place. You could go up with an elevator and you could go down. I think you can get a little bit higher with the sound. It was quite nice because in this dark room, this industrial room, people suddenly were lying on the floor and just looking up, and it became a kind of very different space just by some small lights and some sounds. Okay, so thank you. And now, finally, the electrical box. I told you already that I had all these kind of disturbances in these cable installations, I was asked to do a major installation, and I took up the technique again, had the same problems, and then in 2003 I was in Tokyo for another installation, and I had special headphones which had no filters. I said, I want to hear these sounds in the city. I want to see what is all this electromagnetic stuff which disturbs me. Let's see if I can get away with it. And it was the opposite what happened. I was so excited during my first walk in Tokyo, what I heard, that I said, it's a city now. The city is my new place of work. So I started this series called Electron Walks, which means you get a map, you get a headphone, and then you can just walk. You can follow the map if you walk, if you want. It's quite useful because the map for me is like a composition, and then you can go on and find your own places. I show you some of the maps. This is a beautiful map, but it's very hard to read. So the designers sometimes do their things. This is the work I do. It's Vienna. And then this is the translation. So every map is very, very different. And the form of the walks too shows you if it's an old city, if it's a modern city, if it's a European city, if it's a British city. Yeah, this is very British. Moscow, Brooks University had a guest professorship there in 2014-15. So this was inside the new university, and it was full of sounds. You will hear a lot of sounds now, very soon. Lagos, Africa, very hot, because they had 2 types of electricity. Sometimes they had no electricity, and they had all these diesel aggregates, and sometimes for an hour or 2 they had official electricity. So I had to do several options. And this is a translation of a sketch in Bangkok, which I like very much because it's so to the point. Now, how do I start this work? I listen. Listening is the most important thing. I take the headphones for 2-3 days, I walk through the cities. And now, of course, I know there's things which are familiar, cables. But as well, if you go in the landscape, I mean, we have seen during the lectures, in all these films, all these electrical power lines, and they sound incredibly. I mean, I would love to walk around the Silk Road and just listen to these electrical lines. That would be a good thing to do, yeah. I started to do these recordings from 2003 on, as I said, and I have a huge archive of thousands of sounds. And many sounds have disappeared very quickly, mostly of more analog situate machines and so on. I play you now a short video which is about an electrical walk in Berlin from 2007, 10 years ago. And you will see afterwards, it makes a lot of difference that these 10 years.
Okay, I heard you laughing when you heard these old mobile phones, so that's one of the things. Since in these 10 years, I've realized many other walks all over the world, I would say. And of course, what you hear now is so different from 10 years ago. What has changed is a kind of advertisement. This is an advertisement in Bangkok, so I just listened to a light screen here. The size has changed. You have these huge screens now which make a lot of very special sounds. You have a lot of LED screens, not so much in Europe, but all over Asia and other countries. And the LED screens are interesting because when you listen to them, you hear the movement. You can go up still a little bit. I like loud sound. So you almost follow a story with these light sounds. Neon sounds different from LED light. And the most beautiful ones are I think, the Asian sound screens. All the recordings are done live. There is no artificial thing. It's just done with a headphone. So when you walk up in front of such a light screen, you can get into a kind of special process of being lost in electricity. Stations, Manchester. This is exactly the place where this terrorist attack happened, exactly here.
stations are really a big source, the one in Amsterdam as well, of special sounds. And for example, all the French stations have a different rhythm because they have a different kind of electricity system. So it's very funny when you walk around with the headphones, you see the trains coming in and out, people waiting, and you have all the time this beat around you. And I love trams. This is an old tram in Ekaterinburg in Russia. I recorded last year, and I have to play this for you. It's sitting inside, actually. And so on. I took a lot of tram rides in that city, and other old trams are Bratislava, Tatra trams, they do not exist anymore. I had 3 days of recording. I will make a piece out of that. Okay, another thing which is typical now is security gates. You know these gates you have to go into in the shopping malls or the bigger shops, and sometimes you don't see them because they hide them, like here, with some kind of publicity. These are 20 altogether. When you go along, it's like a percussion piece. Okay. Banks are interesting too, mostly the bank machines. In some cities, it's very hard to find them because they have only, people do not pay any more cash, they have credit cards. So whatever you find in a city describes the city. The more you come to northern cities, the less you have bankomats, you say, bank machines, where you can get cash. The most I found were in Moscow because they trade, you know, they have their special trades and they like cash. And so in some streets you find like 20 different small banks with bank machines, with bankomats. Yeah, here is Jennifer looking for one in Eastland. And this is the typical sound for a certain kind of bank machine from Nixdorf. You find that all over the world. Light screens. So in this case, it was just one sound which did not change, so the people just stayed in front of it. But there's other bigger light screens, and in Europe we have smaller ones, but when you go abroad, you find really huge ones. The next one, this is from Berlin, actually, Berlin's Central Station, has just installed these. And yeah, it depends really how you see an image when you hear something, and the sound might change the image or the way you listen to it. Here you could go up and down. Ah. As you've seen, often you have there's groups of people. I like to do guided walks, so it means I have 8 to 10 people, and I go around with them, not following the normal path of the map, but having my own way of showing them places. And this is very nice to be a group of people, because the communication is quite different than being alone. I like both things. And then people start suddenly, when they know how it works, is they see something and they all run there and go around and have their own choreography and performance. That's interesting. Sometimes you lose people as well. They just go somewhere. Okay, I think we have enough samples now, almost, yeah. Sometimes you hear strange sounds. This is Vienna. There was a sound coming from the earth. Of course, cables. Cambodia is this. Yeah, I go on. Okay, and then what we all talk about all the time is digital communication. This is a roof in Lagos, on top of the Goethe Institute, and we just could go up. We got the key. This is a live recording I did there. And now there's something you might know. This is the sound of Sonic X outside, recorded yesterday afternoon. I must say it's very strong. And my last thing is harbors, as we are here in a harbor area. There is electromagnetic sounds which you feel they're there for communication, they're necessary for logistics or whatever. There's others like these stupid security gates which just keep you away. And the sounds of, connected situations are much more interesting. Of course, I like it because it's my ship. Yeah, and then you stand there and just hear these ships communicating, and you see them coming in and out. It's like a theater piece sometimes. You don't need much, just a headphone, and everything changes. And the last of these examples, you get radio very often. It's not normal. It's not radio waves because you have just metal coils in the headphones. But very often you get radio. This was I think this was Bangkok on a roof, and you see the radio station. And we went there very often, mostly at night, and listened to the radio just with a headphone on. Last year, 3 years ago, I went with two Austrians, friends of mine, to Las Vegas. We got the money to make a film and a radio play. And we were staying 2 weeks in Las Vegas, which was, for me, it was incredible because every night I could go in the casinos and make recordings. And very often I had to hide. I had a special construction with a handbag, and my recording headphone or other tools were inside. And we became really specialists. Well, we made this film, which is called Desert Bloom, because, you know, Las Vegas is surrounded by a desert, and it consumes an incredible lot of electricity. And the big Hoover Dam they have to connect it with electricity is half empty already. It's a very strange situation. Here's a picture with a... we made a vinyl record too. Here's a short sample of the record. It's just 2 live recorded sounds mixed together. Oh no, I have to, sorry. Okay, so you see, it's fun. I was told I have 5 minutes. It's not true because I have 50 minutes at least, and I have now 42 minutes, so I have at least 8 more minutes. You were late, not me. I will try to be quick. Performance, I restarted with performance some years ago because it was no more like being on stage, but mostly what I do is or I play around with, like, I listen to computers and other crappy stuff, or I go around and listen to the building itself. And very often, then there is a video camera because people cannot see what I do. So this is a very, very short video just to show you how these performances are. Okay, you saw I have other tools than just headphones. And I want to finish, I wouldn't like to finish, but I have to finish with a series of works called Cloud. Well, the Cloud is a heavy building, a sculpture, a sound sculpture, and it's based on, well, the fact that we always think that every electromagnetic sound or wave is immaterial. But whenever we use our smartphones, whenever we have an intelligent refrigerator, whenever we have live stream, and we really have a lot of activities going on. There's huge buildings with consuming an incredible lot of electricity, and as this electricity has to be stable, of course they have to have separate electricity in case of. So this is Deagle aggregates. They have to run every 2-3 days. They poison the air. They make a lot of noise. That's why you cannot have these farmer places, server farms. In places in the city. They have to be far away in places like Mongolia or sometimes in northern places where electricity is cheap. But, I mean, be aware that everything you do is creating pollution and consumes electricity and has a lot of impacts on the landscape and so on. So we are responsible. I recorded several places like that, not really the big ones, but this was a big one from the telecom. Beautiful sounds, like a siren. I got very tired after I was in there. This is a score for the cloud. This is the making of the cloud. I have electrical cable. I make little clouds, 12, 14. Takes me 2 to 3 days. Okay, then it's put on a structure. It has to be online. It's very heavy, 80 to 100 kilos. It's quite real cloud. It has to be connected. Then there's players with the sounds of the server farms and other electrical heavy places. And then you can listen to the cloud, and you can listen to it with the same system as the early induction installations you saw, first with the cubes, then with the headphones. People go around. This was one in China, Vienna. I play just a moment to get you an idea of the sound. Okay, I have to shut this up. It could be much longer. It's a composition of about 50 minutes. And I still have 4 minutes. So I want to show you two other works I did recently. One is connected to the fact of the eternity costs. Eternity costs are the costs of having heavy water pumps in the Ruhr area, and in other places of the world it's the same, of the places left from the coal miners. You know, they go out, everything is empty, then the water comes in, and it poisons the drinking water. So all over that area, they have hundreds of pumps under the earth, and they cost millions of euros every day, but they can't do anything. They have to go on. So they call it eternity cost, but they don't want to become it public. I had the chance I was invited at a central place in that area, and we tried to record the sounds under the earth and where the water was coming out. They made it very difficult. We needed permissions all over. We had to have certain instructions to go down, and this was the only recorder which was permitted to use under the earth, and it's from the FBI, I was told. Okay, this is not really under the earth, it's just the first step, but sometimes we had to go down like half an hour in very old shabby things. It was very frightening. So, yeah, this is the installation. The pump sounds are from these green speakers, and all the other speakers are under the earth. You see there's a hole, and then we could install all these underwater sounds, very strange sounds. Yeah, we could install them in another place. So it really had the feeling of something going on under the earth. And it was, I mean, it put up quite some questions, because even people living there didn't know about the pumps. This is not Amsterdam, this is Hamburg, and this is another new project I was doing with a group of a video maker and a composer. The whole piece is called Stadt. It's about gentrification, it's about other problems of building. And in Hamburg, the same thing is happening like over here. They're building a lot near the water. So people could hear this only with these magnetic headphones. We had 80 of them. We had built a city, kind of city. There was little videos all over. the sound you heard was, in the beginning, sounds from people explaining why they should build there, why people should go there, how good it was to do all this. And then we had fugitives making interviews, and but from people who had no home to live. It was a kind of mixture, and then more and more electromagnetic sounds and working sounds come in. We had 4 actors. They were taking away the city. You see one with a round thing. So the city was disappearing by and by. There were 2 musicians. You could not hear them without the headphone. If you take off the headphone, you couldn't hear anything, just with the headphones, because everywhere we had cable loops, and this was made with contact mics. He had records with my sounds, special made records, playing them. Okay, and then in the end, this was the end of the city. And this is the end of my lecture. Thank you.